I'll call to order the December meeting of the Finance Committee and welcome everybody here today. We've got an awful lot to do today, so we're going to jump into it right away. I am going to ask first if there are any items people would like pulled off of the consent. Mr. McIntosh, you gave me
C13.
He gave me C13. Ms. Adams, you had some?
C2, 3, and 9, please.
C2. C, what was the next one?
3 and
3
9.
and 9. Ms. Burke, you have some?
Yes, C4,
C4,
5, 6,
5, and 6.
7, and 9. And
Wait a minute.
Mr. Chairman, I think for the purpose of the money involved with some of these projects,
Yeah.
the public needs to hear a little bit more about these.
Okay, you gave me 5, 6, 7, and 9. Is that right?
And I gave you 9.
9. And I'm going to do 8.
We're just going to do all of them, folks.
For you, those who've never been to this meeting, normally we don't pull everything
We
off
don't.
consent, but I believe we're left with
But today
C1.
is Christmas.
Hang on a minute.
We're making sure we don't get rocks of coal in our boxes.
Can I have a motion from a committee
Move
member?
for approval for the balance of the consent agenda or what's left.
What's left? We have a second.
Second.
So we're pulling off 4, 8, 2, 3, 13, 9, 5, 6, 7, and 9. We're voting on the balance. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed
Opposed.
likewise.
Motion. Do we need to do a motion?
No, we got it.
No? Okay.
Okay. Now, having done that, unless I hear no objections, we do have the folks here from the Citizens Capital Needs Committee, and they have a meeting after this and would like to go first. So with no objections, we'll do that. If the secretary would read G2, please.
Item G2, resolution acknowledging the receipt of the final report of the Citizens Capital Needs Committee.
Okay. Mr. Orr, if you would approach the microphone, if you please give your name and address for the record.
Thank you very much. I'm Glenn Orr, Forest Drive here in Winston-Salem.
Thank you,
It's
sir.
my pleasure to serve as chairman of the Citizens Capital Needs Committee, I believe is what we were called. I appreciate the mayor giving me the opportunity to run the committee. We had 11 individuals on the committee, and they came from about as diverse backgrounds as we could possibly put a committee together. Several of you from time to time attended these meetings. I can tell you that we were blessed with a group of people that took it seriously, realized when we started it was going to be a challenge. I don't believe we met every other week for about 2.5, 3 months, and I don't believe we ever had an absence the whole time that we met. The report that we have come up with, I understand you've got it.
Yes, we do.
Okay. I am certainly not going to spend the time it takes to go through that entire report today, and I was going to just highlight one or two things that I think are very important in them. First, we started with $630 million of possible requests. The first thing the committee did was get the finance area to run some projections for us as to what would happen if we raised taxes so much and so forth, and what could we afford as a city. Well, we can afford everything on that list, but we don't think that'd be very prudent. Our committee, realizing, of course, we're nothing but a committee that recommends to you, but our committee, if we were making a decision, would approve $120 million of projects. That's a roughly 4-cent tax increase if you're going to pay for it that way. And we tried to take the projects, and we used the system that we used in the last time this was done, where we prioritized the projects, and then we prioritized the areas inside those projects. And we went through a lot of calculation and a lot of back and forth. The final part of the deal was we'd agreed that we'd have $120 million as our goal. And we took that and said, okay, committee members, take this home and come back and tell us how you spend $120 million. In your report, towards the back, is I believe it's on page 5. No, look on page 227 or 228. It was pretty amazing. I mean, it was all across the board on how we'd spend that money. I think if I could sum up for you, it would be that we feel that we've got to take care of what we already have. And there is a lot of stuff in the maintenance in the parks, and other owned properties of the city that need refurbishing, need work, and we can't let those run down. And so there's quite a bit in here for stuff like new roofs, upkeep, and that type of stuff. We also tried to be as good as we could to every interest group that is interested in this project. And I think we did a pretty good job of it. We, as I said, gave priority to existing structures and programs. We did not, and suggest that you consider not putting in the bond referendum any expenditure under $500,000. We felt like, $10,000 here and $5,000 there for a bond referendum of $120 million. This doesn't make sense. There's got to be a way that this can be handled in the operating budget of the city. But again, that of course is your decision. I'm happy to answer any questions. You have a good executive summary right in front of you, and you've got more information than you probably want to read. In closing, I would just once again like to thank the mayor and Robert and others who allowed us to do this, and to say to the committee, I've got some of them here today.
If you are on the committee, if you could please stand.
Committee, just stand. Anybody that's here. Two good ones anyway. They worked hard, and it was a delight to work with them. I would be happy, Mr. Chairman, to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions and comments, Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Ward, I don't have a question. I just, certainly on behalf of the City Council, I want to thank you and the committee. I saw some of your meetings and how quickly you grabbed a hold of that and ran through it. And Greg Turner, thank you for your leadership in that as well. But I think you've given us a great starting point here, $120 million worth of projects out of 630. I know you did a great job of vetting it down, and we greatly appreciate that. The City Council and I will now kind of go to work on that. I think we've got a committee of the whole scheduled in January to begin a more detailed discussion of those and starting putting it all together. Thank you for your time.
Yes, sir.
Jeff had one, and I'll get you.
I have a comment, not a question. I had served on the Capital Needs Committee back in 2012, and I want to commend you guys. You made a much cleaner, more efficient pass at it. We felt proud of what the final product was, but watching you guys operate, I was just very much impressed. There was a lot of conversation around the table, a lot of inclusiveness, and I just want to commend you on the work that you did. As a former
banker, you know how long meetings can last. So.
Dee Dee?
Yes, thank you again for everything that you did, you and the committee for putting this together, helping us to get through this type of process. But now I'm putting it back to Mr. Turner and the city manager. You know I like visuals. I'd like to see what this looks like as a visual so far as the city of Winston-Salem is concerned. I see a lot of projects, ideas down here, but I'm wondering again, like we did in 14, have we looked at the whole city, and does it, if they looked at it, our citizens, would they see that all of the money was going somewhere else instead of it going, inclusive of everyone? So I'd like to see that.
Councilmember Adams, we actually have that information. the committee asked for that, specifically Chairman Orr. They wanted to make sure that the projects were diversified in every way. So, Ben, we've got that mapping that we'll get to you to show.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ms. Burke, go ahead.
Yes, thanks. I was going to also make a comment similar to the councilwoman. Mr. Orr, you've been with us quite some time, giving volunteer work through the years, and it has diverse a whole lot since in the beginning when we started back in the late 70s. And it's always appreciated to have our citizens to volunteer, and I'm pleased that the councilwoman would say we look at the diverse, as the city manager just finished stating, and we want to make sure, as I said to him just the other day, all of the citizens in this community would like to feel that their tax dollars are being used and that they're benefiting from the tax dollars. And he has to show, as the manager, he runs this city, we give him directions though, but he has to show us 8 elected officials that he is fair for the whole ward, which takes in over 200 and some thousand people. Also, Mr. Chairman and Vice Chair, members of this committee, and the mayor, and other council people and city manager, I want to say to the volunteers how much we appreciate you. Our city is based, and we use volunteers to help us to have a good city. And each year, not this year, we do a project called Project We Care. And we make sure, Mr. Page, make sure we get all of their names and let them know when we do Project We Care how much we appreciate your time and your effort in this great city of Winston-Salem we love so much, and we thank you.
Mr. Mayor, just in closing, I've been involved in these projects from time to time, and I never come away from them that I am not just completely amazed at the efficiency of the staff of this city. They are outstanding. You only got to ask them one time for something and you get it. And I just can't tell you what a privilege it is to work with professionals like that.
Thank you. Thank you. And I would recognize Jimmy Flife has just walked in, and he was also one of the committee members. I would say, and we've got 6 out of 8 council members here. We are going to have a committee the whole meeting in late January. Do we have a date on that?
It's the fourth Monday, so it's before it's that fourth Monday. It's a 5 or 6 o'clock meeting.
Anybody got a calendar in the room? January 29th at what time?
No, we moved it to 20. We moved it to the fourth Monday because of Councilmember Bessie.
Yeah.
I think it's the 20.
29th at 5 o'clock?
No, that's 22nd.
22nd, yeah.
It was originally 29th.
All right.
The 22nd.
It's the other fourth Monday. Okay. For everyone's information, and certainly for the committee members, you can certainly watch us on TV or come and sit in the audience. We will meet January the 22nd, which is the fourth Monday in January at 5 o'clock to begin discussing this. And I would tell everyone, if you have any issues, questions, additional information you want, please get back to the staff and they'll have it ready for you then. I will say, Lee, I would like in preparation for that, I think it'd be helpful to have some information on the current bond projects, what areas we've done. You've got them by broad categories, and then those underneath, how much we've either spent or going to spend. And Ms. Saunders, since you're the money person, y'all always do a nice chart that shows how we fund it and we spend it in kind of a cash flow analysis, so we'll kind of know how the funds run. That would be very helpful for me. So anyway, we are not going to review all this, but I do have my copy, and I have started to read it. Mr. Orr, so thank y'all all very much. You may certainly stay for the entire meeting, but you will not be the first person who's left early if you do.
Get out while you can.
Okay, thank y'all very much.
Thank you, guys.
We will now go to the consent, and I'm just going to start with, and I'm going to try to do this numerically. What's that?
Just want to check on the meeting date.
It was moved at the council meeting to the 22nd.
Okay.
Certain of
I thought it went the other way.
Oh, went the other way?
It went from 22nd to 29th.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
That's what I got on the calendar.
Okay. I've got it.
I'm coming on the 29th. Rest of you can come.
Well,
29?
well,
Okay. I've got
when
it.
y'all decide when the fourth Monday of January is, please let everybody know, and let's be sure
29?
it's the 29th.
It's 29.
Fifth Monday in January.
Okay.
Fifth Monday.
All right, I've got it on my.
29th.
Look how much time we spend on a date.
We all be sure to inform the committee, because 4 of them just left with the wrong date.
Got it on my calendar.
All right, we're gonna, and I'm just gonna try to do this in numerical order. We will start with C2.
Item C2, consideration of amendment to the fiscal year 2017-2018 budget ordinances for the city of Winston-Salem.
Dee Dee, you had this one, but I had some questions as well, but I'll let you go first. Or can,
Chair.
okay. Lee, I'm not sure. Ms. Tooney, are you gonna can you give us just a brief rundown? I do have a comment on it, which I'll make after you finish. Did I pronounce your last name right? Is it
Tony.
Tony, okay, that's
Yes.
what I thought after I said that. Sorry.
Thank you. No problem.
I'm still discombobulated from the 4th Monday of the month.
Was there a specific item on here? These were the budget amendments. There is the standard appropriation for various areas. Then there's a poverty reduction initiative where we are appropriating $40,000 in general fund contingency for the poverty reduction initiative.
So these are just an accumulation of various changes along the way.
Yes, that's correct.
I would like to make a comment on the Poverty Task Force. I have received several calls over the weekend concerning this, and I'm going to address this to the mayor since this is kind of your area, from folks that are concerned that we need to get all the parties involved in one room and talk about this before we appropriate any money. And those are the two.
Parties would those be, Mr. Chairman?
The two foundations, Wake Forest, us, and some other folks that I can give you names later. But they raised some issues with me whether or not we have adequately vetted this with various stakeholders to be sure we've got everyone's input on it. So
Certainly get all the input we need, but we had plenty of, I think, vetting, and we're actually getting ready to meet with all the foundations week after next.
okay. Well, I think those meetings need to take place before the budget vote takes place.
But we need, my opinion is we need the city to step out and say we're committed to this plan, and then we try to put the money back together. But
Okay.
Councilmember Montgomery and I had a discussion today that maybe one alternative would be to get the dollars appropriated, but then we'll come back through the general committee and with a more detailed plan, the final use of the dollars. So I think it's important for the city to put a step forward and say we're committed to this if we are.
Well, I think we have adopted a resolution endorsing the Thought Force report.
Right.
But based on my conversations I had over the weekend, I would not feel comfortable voting on this until those meetings take place. Mr. Montgomery?
Yep. As the mayor stated, when we just recently had a conversation about this same item, that in being able to move it forward, being able to have the allocation of the funds through the action of the council, but pretty much contingency that we're allocating X amount of dollars, but the program plan for the use of those dollars will come back to the committee in terms of being able to say, this is how we will spend these dollars, to the point of being able to go to the foundations to show this is not just something that the city's asking other people to do, but we're going to participate in it and share some of the same concern in terms of making sure that we're not duplicating certain things and making sure we have the right people in the right place. But I think bringing that plan back before we expend funds would achieve the same goal. So if we say we're going to allocate X dollars, but before we expend those dollars, we have a detailed plan that comes back to the council for its approval.
Okay, well, I would like that wording in the resolution.
Yeah, that's fine with me. You know, this is a $360,000 a year budget.
Yeah.
We're being asked for $40,000, so I think we got to show that we're kind of leading in this effort to get the rest of it. But I agree with you.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. It looked like all we're doing is leveraging some money here with the city saying that we're in the pot for whatever, not up to 360, and how that money ultimately will be allocated and spent is still to be determined. Is that within the guidelines?
Yeah, within the guidelines.
Okay.
Right.
We have a work plan. We got it. We're getting an initial budget of 360 here, and we're asking the city to put up the first
Yeah, asking the city for 40 out of that. We've got, yeah. We've got about another 120 committed as well. So that's what we're going to the foundation for the rest of it.
Foundational, so if we don't get the other money, I assume the project doesn't go forward. So, I mean, it's sort of like when you pay us, you share for committee. So I don't vote.
Yeah, but you will at some time. Go ahead.
I'm comfortable with this as long as we know that the groups to be named later, which we don't, you haven't shared with us, as long as we know that they are going to be involved in a conversation before we spend the money.
Okay. All right. Ms. Burke, Ms. Adams? Go ahead.
I have a similar concern. It's not that I don't have confidence in what the mayor and the councilperson have done, but when we talk about it, our reputation is very good in this community. We have stepped out to help everybody. And in fact, a lady called me today because she said there was a family who moved here from Pennsylvania, and she was trying to get some help. I said, I'm empty. I can't help anybody anymore. No. And she said, well, what agency can I call? She said, because the lady said, it's good to come to Winston-Salem, and we have been known to help the poorest of the poor, this city has. But I also would like to know, when I read this information, I know a group of people will come together, but I want to know, how are you going to hire someone to manage this? I think I would like to know a little bit more about how it's going to be set up.
Yeah. We can certainly provide the details of that.
Yes.
Councilmember.
Ms. Adams?
Yes, I was talking with Councilmember Clark. The one thing that we do know for sure, and we need to learn from lessons, over the past few weeks, what happens when we don't involve the people who we're trying to do the good work for. It's great to do good work, but if you never ask or get that piece done first, then it's doomed to be not so successful. So, Mayor and Councilman Montgomery, you both know where I stand on this, and Chair Clark. When you come back, you need to make sure that the people have been asked their input and what they want, hear their voices, because we just heard 2 or 3 weeks ago, that's their voice, and they want to be heard. They're not into how much good we think we're doing. They need to be heard first, okay?
Yeah, and I appreciate that. And I would just say to you that we held 5 neighborhood meetings, put together the plan, and then went back for a 6th neighborhood input session of people who had been in poverty, lived in poverty. So I think we got some pretty frank reactions to it there. But I agree with you, Councilmember, that we got to make sure you can never have too much.
You can't. And Mayor, those 6 meetings you had that was then. I'm talking about now. I think it might be good somehow you figure out, you and your team of the organizations, how do you go and have a re-up of just an overview of what you've been doing? Because I don't want you to.
Thank you.
You know?
I think it makes sense to, maybe we can talk about the implementation step now. The rest of the first step was getting the data. Excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
That would be great.
Yeah, go ahead.
But thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? I will say this. I have no problem moving it forward tonight, but if there is not specific language in this Monday night that says that we're not approving the money until we have detailed information on who's doing what, when, where, and how, I will consider at that point. Because I was on the phone, and I apologize, I'm hitting you blindly, but I was on the phone pretty late Sunday night after several phone calls on this particular issue.
I think I meet with the person you talked to on.
I know you are. You meet with one of them.
Yeah.
Anyway, so can I get a motion on this?
I move.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Any other? Mr. Montgomery, you have your hand
Well,
up. Go
with
ahead.
that, to an understanding with that, the language that I mentioned to be a part of that, is that,
Yeah.
I think that should be a consensus from the committee
Yes.
going
That
forward.
is in my motion. I thought
Okay.
that when he finished, that was added to it.
Yeah.
Okay.
With the understanding we're going to add some additional language, and I'm not sure how staff's going to interpret all that was just said, but you'll do it. Okay, we have a motion, second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And I'm going to abstain on it, so that's 3 in favor, none opposed, 1 abstaining.
We're not voting electronically.
Oh, I'm sorry. I keep forgetting about it.
We don't-
We have a motion and a second. Will someone put this?
I made the motion.
Yes, ma'am, you need to push whatever button we need to push here.
Well, I'm trying to find it now.
I don't
I
see it either.
Go ahead, I hear it.
All right, I got
Somebody
a
got a second, okay.
Who's
I'm just
second?
getting carried away here.
No, now, I'm gonna tell y'all, I
There
hear
you
what
go.
you're saying, because I was gonna tell you, it's gonna be my motion.
There you go.
I think it
is.
It is.
Well, I had it. I just
Works for me.
moving too, I'm faster than electricity tonight. I'm trying to get all this done. All right, here we go. Hang on. What's that? I don't have anything.
Did you join?
Hang on a minute. No, I didn't join.
Nice to have the chairman join.
The snow has him messed up.
Okay, I have voted. I just can't believe we can't figure out what's the fourth Monday in January. All right, that's done. That is approved. We will now go to C3.
Item C3, resolution approving the 2018 Federal Action Plan for the City of Winston-Salem.
Ms. Adams, I had this, your name beside this one.
Yes, we're going to go real quickly. If Mrs. Mazingo will come up, if she doesn't mind, and just give us a quick 60-second overview of where we're going with this going into 18.
Sure, of course. So the documents that you have in front of you this evening, there's a couple of things. First of all, you have the performance measures, and you have the performance measures for next year that has to do with contractually. But for the agenda, what's most important is, as you know, Congress carries over from first session to second session, which is what we'll be going into. So rather than starting the whole process over, there's still things left undone. And so what you should have is a document where I've shown some initial changes. So for example, on the coordinated terrorist attack grant that we went after last year, we won that grant. So we'll take that off as one of the primary activities. Tax reform has been updated based on the resolution that you passed recently. This is still a work in progress because we haven't yet completed. They're still working on where FY18 appropriations will go. So if there's any additional cuts or any additional measures that you all find, alarming or something that, raises a red flag, this is something we can still come back and modify. But I wanted you to see, at least for the time being, what changes I'm recommending and what things I'm recommending that we go forward.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions from Mr. Singer? Can you give your address for the record?
Oh, yes, of course. I'm at 4315 Woodburn Drive in Clemens, North Carolina, here locally, and then I also have a 400 North Street, Washington, D.C. address.
Okay, can I get a
North
motion
Capitol.
on this then?
Move forward.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Hang on a minute.
May I make a comment?
Yes, ma'am. You certainly may.
I noticed that Councilmember Adams is very alert when it comes to what's happening at the national level. She sits on one of our most powerful National League of Cities committee. I sat on that committee some years back. And I do want you to know how much I appreciate you keeping us up with the taxes and what's happening at the national level.
Thank you. That she does. She does email us regularly. If everybody will please vote.
It came up, yeah.
What's that?
It came up.
Oh, it's done?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I missed. Boy, it's quick. All right, we will now go to C4. Secretary, read that, please.
Item C4, consideration of items regarding modifying a previously approved authorization for the city manager to enter into an interlocal agreement with the Airport Commission.
Yes.
Mr. Page, will you please give a little history and where we are on this? Because this has changed a little bit in the last little bit.
Sure. Back in May of last year, council approved $150,000 per year or $1.2 million over 8 years to the Airport Commission to assist with some of their capital infrastructure needs. In the last General Assembly session, a bill was approved that by state law basically exempted the runways and taxiways from paying the stormwater fees. So in response to that change, we did not budget the $150,000 this past year or this current year.
have currently been in negotiations and conversations with the county. The proposal in front of you would basically modify the $150,000 per year and reduce that to $100,000 per year to make up for the difference that we are seeing, the net loss that we've had in the stormwater fund of $46,176. So in actuality, we actually net about $3,900 by doing this.
Okay. But we are between the money we're not forgiving, but are freeing up from stormwater, plus this approximates our initial commitment.
Correct.
Okay, Mr. McIntosh?
When we made the, I'm sorry.
Ms. Burke, I think you were.
No, I'll let him. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
When we reached a deal with them and agreed to contribute $150,000, it was not known to us that the runways and taxiways would be exempted from stormwater.
That's right.
So that was a change that came at us sort of blindsided. Okay, thank you.
Ms. Burke?
Yes, since this is in the Northeast Ward, and out of respect and courtesy to the citizens who live in the Northeast Ward, we did meet with the commissioner on several times. I don't know if we were satisfied or not, because they do feel overwhelmed with the airport. It's running right into their backyard. Mm-hmm. In fact, you can, and I know we're not going to be able to do anything about this, but you can drive down Carver School Road and look to your left, and you see the runway right in the yards of the folks right there on Teresa. Mm-hmm. Just look up at it. But I thought, out of respect, that we should have a meeting to let the citizens know what some of their tax dollars are being spent for, even though it's not to their advantage in what they see. And I would like to encourage the city manager to make sure that they keep us well informed, because they're willing to go to the meetings to hear what's going on in the area. As you know, we do not have, we do have representation on that airport commission. Mm-hmm. Some years ago, Mayor Jack Kavanaugh did everything he possibly could to try to get representation on either he would sit or either the council person out of the area, but the commissioners did not accept that. And so they have appointed someone who's on that commission, but there's not much of a communication. Okay. So we ourselves are taking upon ourselves to make sure, and we told, is his name David, the man who's over there in charge? What's that man's name?
Mark Davis.
Mark Davis.
Yes, we did make Mr. Davidson aware to keep us informed. Let us know what's going on.
Mr. Larson?
As I understand this, we were paying $150,000 a year to the airport to enhance their facility, the actual plant, the place, the runways, the buildings. With this change, the stormwater component, which equals about $50,000, has now been removed. The airport authority, as I understand now, has charged that $50,000 be directed to marketing the airport. Is that correct? Do we know? That the money that's been saved by the legislation, I think, said that money for the runoff is now, that they're saving, is to be used by the airport, not for bricks and mortar, but for promotion and marketing of the airport. Regardless, the point is that that $50,000, say, we have now reduced our payment to the airport to $100,000 to reflect that difference. The loser in all of this is the Stormwater Trust Fund, who is now short $50,000 for the money that was normally had gone to them. My question to the council is whether our obligation is to take that $50,000 that we're now not paying to the airport and put that back into the utilities department for the stormwater runoff.
First off, we'll have to find out. I have not heard or seen anything that says how they have to spend that money. We can check into that.
That really doesn't matter. I mean, it's the $50,000 that is now, we're no longer paying the county. And the loser in this is the stormwater fund, which if we're experiencing erosion problems in that neighborhood, because of stormwater runoff, then it seems, and we know the stormwater fund is challenged anyway.
Well, Ms. Saunders, what's the current balance in the stormwater fund approximately? I'm thinking $30 million. It's in the 20s at least, yeah. Actually, can you run and get that before we adjourn? I think the stormwater fund is currently adequately funded, but we can certainly do what we want to, but I think it's close to $30 million, 25, $30 million. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, does it seem like we're as well informed as we should be about this? Don't you think, Mr., you could bring that to us so we'll have a better understanding about the airport, what they're doing, and then what the utilities, they just finished mentioning, so
Yeah.
we can be informed. If we're the leaders, we have to keep in mind we're working with the county and county commissioners.
Okay, Mr. Mack?
I think after this arrangement, we're actually down $150,000 a year. We're no longer receiving $150,000 in stormwater payments.
No, it's just 50. It's just 50.
Just 50.
It's just 50. They just
Okay.
exempted the runways and the taxiways.
Got it, okay.
And the other thing that's important to note is the county has to match this.
Okay, all right.
Same as before. The county government has to put 100,000 in for us to put 100,000
And
in.
let me correct one other thing, Mr. Larson. I think we've only done this 1 year. Is that right? So it's so far, so it's not like it's a long history. We've just started doing this.
But the long-term impact of stormwater trust fund, stormwater fund, will be, every year, there'll be $50,000 less because of this runway removal. As part of the money that they will receive.
The attorney had a comment.
Yes, in terms of the question about the use of the funds that are no longer subject to the stormwater, it says in the bill that the savings realized from this exemption shall be used for attracting businesses to the airport, and the airport commission shall provide certification to the city that the savings realized basically have been used for that purpose.
Okay, so economic development, whatever that means. Okay. All right. I was going to say, if the Chamber of Commerce has just paid, and the final report is just out they did an airport analysis. They actually called it Aerotropolis, and basically looked at that whole area from the airport all the way over to Whitaker Park and some other. It would be nice, that report is final and it's out, if the staff could get a copy and send it in our Thursday packets to all the council members. That would be nice. Gets back to Ms. Burke's comment about keeping us informed. Now, I know that's the chamber versus the airport authority, but it should be a very helpful report to us. Ms. Saunders, what's the magic number? 24.5. That's the current balance. Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, ma'am.
Since you mentioned that, the chamber, the people that they're assigned to that was very interesting to work with.
Okay.
They made sure they were going to look. But one thing they observed in me, I don't know if it's going to be in there, and I shared this with the city manager, that in all of the investment that we've made in this city, and we look at how much money that's been invested and the poor job we have done from Liberty on back toward the airport. And I agree with them 100%, that I do not feel that as we sit here and we go out and we try to get people to come in with grocery stores or whatever, we have done a poor job in trying, they may not put it in that report, to make Liberty Street that quarter what it ought to be.
I have not seen the reports. I can't comment what's in it, but I do know it's out. And Ms. Larson, another comment. The reason I mentioned just 1 year, this is hopefully going to have some positive benefit to the community in that both the city and the county county commissioners are now putting money into the airport, and hopefully we're going to see new jobs, new development, or whatever, and there will be some economic benefit back to the city in salaries and sales tax and property tax, whatever. But it's way too early to tell on that.
Don't misinterpret. I'm all for the $100,000 to support and match with what the county's doing. My question evolved around the $50,000 savings and our decision not to put in $50,000 and may bring it up to $150, and where that 50 is and how that's being allocated now that we now have a new baseline, as it were, that we're spending on.
Okay. Can I get a motion on this one? I was going to let Ms. Burke, this is your area, if you don't mind.
I'm sorry.
I move for approval.
Well, Ms. Burke has moved this for approval. Do we have a second? Somebody, okay. I'm waiting. Okay, if everybody will please vote. Okay, that is approved 4-0. We will now go to C5. Secretary, please read that one.
Item C5, information regarding street sweeping service costs.
Ms. Burke, this is one of your favorite
Yes,
topics, and I
it
saw
sure
you had it
is.
removed. Would you
That's
like
why
to,
I wanted them to bring it up so we can see. Please, just
we could get a 2-minute explanation of what's going on here?
2 minutes? Yes, sir.
2 minutes.
Chairman Clark, Mayor Joins, Mayor Pro Tem Burke, members of the council. This came to Public Works Committee last month. It had three components to it. One was looking at the management of the current contract with Sweeping Corporation of America. The second piece, which is back before you guys this afternoon, you ladies and gentlemen, is the service costing. And then there was a third component related to an additional service that we're providing with sanitation vehicles on bike lanes. If you'll look at page 2 of the service costing, what you'll see there is that the contractor we currently have charges about $340,000 per year, sweeps approximately 5,800 miles of curb miles. What we're proposing is to hire 2 new employees, purchase 2 frontline vehicles, 1 backup vehicle, and we would, as you see there, spend approximately $400,000 in the first year and sweep approximately 13,000 curb miles, or more than double what the contractor is currently sweeping. If you look down at the bottom of the table, you'll see efficiency numbers there, $58 per mile approximately for the contractor cost. In the first year, just over $30 per curb mile swept, but over a 10-year cost cycle, just under $25 per curb mile swept, or almost 60% more efficient than the contractor. After 5 years, the leasing costs of the vehicles fall off, and so years 6 through 10 are less expensive, and that's why we did a 10-year cycle on that. So what we're proposing is that we could provide more service, more than double, for a lower cost over a 10-year cycle. Without objection, we would put an RFP on the street with specification to purchase these vehicles and bring that back to you guys as soon as we can.
Okay, Ms. Burke.
Mr. Chairman and Assistant, what I was concerned about, I did not feel that we as a city really knew if they were really sweeping these streets or not, because they've been known, some of them, to go down at the end of a street when they come to certain neighborhoods and then go back without sweeping streets. So I want to know, how are you going to monitor it even with the new plan?
Yes, ma'am. The piece that came last month to Public Works had a report from the Internal Audit Division that looked at the city's management of the current contractor. We have available to us GPS data to show where they are going. The audit actually showed that that data was not always available as it should have been. As the service comes in-house, we will also have AVL data on each one of our vehicles that we put on the street, and the sanitation department would have the supervisory authority to make sure that those streets are being swept at the frequencies that they're supposed to be swept at. So we would hope that we have access to AVL data in-house that we should have had through the contractor but did not have.
That sounds good. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Adams?
Yes, I know you've heard me talk about this along with the Mayor Pro Tem for a while, and I'm glad that, again, when you're a business and you have to relook at your footprint and say, well, let's look at the cost, let's look at year over year over year. Could we do this better than contracting or outsourcing it? Could we, in the end, we're going to keep employees employed when we may have to, change some footprints within that department. But the point is, we've been hearing for years, and those of us that live within the inner urban core, our streets never look swept most of the time. Occasionally, I might see a sweeper on University. I've never seen one on Polo or Cherry or Indiana or any of those major other roads in my ward. So this gives us an opportunity to create, again, beautification and appearance of everybody's communities. And you say, which we knew, we got to be able to hold them accountable, because when people find out that we're doing this now, they're going to be calling like they call sanitation and leaf collection, and they're going to want to know, just like we do with them, what days are you in my neighborhood? Because they're going to be looking for you. But I thank you all and staff for going ahead and getting this done, and the Public Works Committee for finally probably getting tired of the Mayor Pro Tem and I talking about sweeping.
Okay, Mr. McIntosh, you have a comment?
Yeah, there is mention in here of it being particularly time sensitive, whether we can get the vehicles in time to meet the end of the contract. You're pretty confident we're going to be able to have an uninterrupted service level?
We've looked at contingencies for that, so we can rent or lease the vehicles in the short term if we need to. It depends on if we're able to buy something off of a co-op or whether we have to spec it out and the vendor has to build it from scratch. The estimated turnaround time is roughly 6 months, so there is a potential that we would have to release the vehicles for a short period of time.
This was an item that I pulled, even though not on Public Works, but it was a sole source contract that we had. And we got another item coming up on C13 that is a sole source. And every time I see a sole source provider and only one bidder, it just makes me nervous that there's no competition there, so we're getting really the best level of service. So I'm very happy that this worked out, that we could do it ourselves, bring it in-house, save some money, but also increase the level of service to citizens of the city. So it's a big win, in my opinion. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Just real quickly, I just want to say it makes me feel good to think that our staff can double the mileage at half the cost. And so we always hear, do it in the private sector, and here we're showing that we can do it even more efficient.
Okay. Ms. Burke?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to say this. The city of Winston-Salem had very fine employees who did a very excellent job with this same thing we're talking about today. The problem came when we contracted out. And then after we contracted out, and we kept some of the same kind as far as the right-of-ways, our city employees that we have saw the people who were contract half doing the job, and they started half doing the job. And I said to the city manager, what we need to do is do a better job of monitoring our city employees. And if we have any outsourcing that we do, we need to make sure we double monitor them, because they half do the job. All you got to do is go up and ride as much as I ride and see them sitting on the side, and then ride through like they've done the job. So I hope that this will be something that we can get about.
All right. Can I get a motion on this, please?
Move for approval.
Second.
Yeah, everybody remember to push the buttons. Here we go. Everybody please vote. That is approved, 4-0. We will now continue to item C6. If the secretary read that one, please.
Item C6, resolution authorizing the lease for office space in suites 203, 205, and 207 of Albert Hall.
We don't have to have no presentation. I just need to ask a question, Mr.
Yes, ma'am.
Chairman.
Go ahead.
I see where we're going to be leasing out. I need to know, how many places are we leasing out? Is this for city employees to use?
This is for the police department, one of the divisions of the police department.
Overall, not now, but just give me a report on who places we're leasing.
Certainly.
In general?
In general.
In general.
Yes.
Good point.
Certainly.
Thank you. Can I get a motion on this one then?
I move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on C6. Everybody please vote. That is approved. We will now go to C7. If the secretary read that one, please.
Item C7, resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Wake Forest Baptist Health for biometric screening services.
Ms. Ruth, can you give us a brief presentation?
Yes. As a part of our employee wellness program, our employees participate in biometric screening, which is a measurement of weight, height, and then other labs that give them ideas about their blood sugar, cholesterol, and so forth. It gives them a really good idea of what their health status is and what their risks are. 2 years ago, we actually bid out this service, and Wake Forest Baptist Health was the successful bidder. We've had them for 2 years, and they've done provided excellent services for us. We're recommending that we employ them again for the upcoming biometrics, which will be in January, and they propose that at the same rate as they did it last year.
Ms. Burke?
I just have one question. How many of our employees have used this?
About 1,600 last year.
So when you say the number of employees, if you have like 100%, of the 100%, how many percent use?
It's 80-some%. It's like 82% of the employees that are on our health insurance.
Thank you. I just wanted to know if we were really using it. Thank you.
Okay. Can I get a motion on this, please?
So move.
We have a motion and a second. Everybody will push the buttons and give it a second here. Everybody please vote. That is approved. We will now go to C8. And I'm the one that pulled this one.
Item C8, resolution authorizing acquisition of 13 pay stations to replace the existing 13 pay stations in downtown.
Mr. Turner, my one question is, how old are the ones we have? I thought we just put them in. Maybe time flies quickly, but how old are they?
Mr. Chairman, I think it's been about 10 years.
Really? Well, says something about my memory. Okay.
You're not batting 1,000 tonight.
I am not. We can't even get the fourth Monday of the month figured out. So they're 10 years old.
That'd be correct.
Okay, that's all I have? Yes, sir.
Manager and I have had a running conversation about trying to make sure that we're not spending money that we have to go back and respend if we update and do a better job of managing our entire parking system. So these, going forward, I'm hoping are going to be able to be flashed and updated and be able to be integrated into their other systems.
Yes. Thank you. Can I get a motion to approve C8?
So moved.
If someone will second that.
Second it, then.
Okay, if everybody please vote. Okay. C9, if the secretary could please read that one, that C8 was approved.
Resolution resolution awarding contract for advertising services for the Dixie Classic Fair.
Mr. Sparks,
I don't have, I need to ask a question.
Who would like to come up?
I guess he would be the one then.
Mr. Sparks, I think you're the expert here, aren't you? Maybe. Okay. Ms. Burke, go right ahead.
Yes, Mr. Chairman and committee people. Mr. Sparks, some years ago, when I looked at the fair, it was not diverse as far as employment. And it really would have gotten a very poor grade. And at that time, you said you were going to do things to improve, and eventually you hired a minority to do a program, and I don't know how long that minority stayed. So my question in looking at the fair employees, when you look at what's going there, permanent employees, I would want to know, maybe you can't give it to me now, but I'd want to know the number of minorities. And also this company that you have here, I want to know their makeup too. I think $690,000, that's a lot of money.
Yes, ma'am.
Not saying they're not going to do the job, but I think it ought to be one that we talk about as being diverse.
Yes, ma'am, I agree.
Okay,
Is
so
it?
I'm sorry?
if you could give us information on both our city employees and the contractor, would be fine. Okay?
Yeah, the fairgrounds has, I believe, 11 employees. There's one African American, and about half and half male to female. The workforce demographics for this particular company, Wildfire, is 53% female, 46% male, and 100% white, I'm afraid to say.
100% what?
Yes, ma'am.
And that's the shame of this race, I really, that we continue. And I think, Mr. City Manager, when you look at that fair, in fact, when you get your entertainment fair, when the people come, I even asked then if we would have more diverse. And I don't know if you're really doing that now. And I don't think it's right in the time that we're living in this city of Winston-Salem, where minorities spend when it comes to economic investment, that we have something as major as a fairground. I commend you for having good turnout, but a lot of those turnouts are minority people. And I think that we're doing a poor job, and I would encourage and expect, City Manager, that you take a serious look at this department. Now, we don't have to keep going back watching folks. They need to do what's right. Now, you and I have very positive communication.
Yes, ma'am.
But I don't like what I see. And I think as the head, you've been the head of this for quite some time, that it's going to be up to you to drive that the way it ought to be.
Yes,
and I
ma'am.
thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Adams had her hand up.
Yes, just a comment. Again, I think you all heard me a couple of weeks ago saying I just come back from Charlotte, sat in on a workshop about minority women business enterprise, and the facilitators, all of them on the panel, was saying that the only way the cities get better at this is the council, the leaders, and the city manager and the mayor have to be intentional. And one thing that I kept hearing was if your minority business and women doesn't reflect, again, what I've said about Herbalife, Caterpillar, and everybody else, if it in the city, if it doesn't reflect the diversity of this city, then we have a problem. And it's like nobody really wants to address it. We just say, well, we can't find anybody. Well, we can't. You can't do that. Because they showed us the data that showed that when we continue to do that, these numbers will never change. So to think that we can say our goal was 10% or 15 or whatever it is for minority business, and we're happy with that, to me, I would like to think my city is better than that. I would like to think that we want to be better than that. So going forward, Mr. Garrity, I think I put a note somewhere recently about that for you. I agree with the Mayor Pro Tem. I'm looking to your assistant managers and those people that manage these departments. You know, the thing is, if I just find it hard to believe that I don't have a minority contractor out there that does advertising, when those one of the fields that I know we have. So I think we need to go back. I'm not going to say, well, I wouldn't mind pulling it myself and go back and look at it again, like I said on some other things. You know, these things like the Mayor Pro Tem said, come to us. And if some of us aren't willing to press pause and say, wait a minute, let's go look at this again. I would like to see the council, unless this is time sensitive, which I don't really think it is because the fair just left and all the other stuff that's coming, I believe that we can possibly go and look at this again. These are the small businesses and minorities, the areas that we have. This is one of those areas because there's so many areas that we don't command experience and expertise in. So I would like for us to do that.
Would
Mr.
you like
Garrett?
to hold it in committee?
Yes, please.
We can withdraw it and rebid it and put the new requirements of, that the successful bidder has. We'll look at whether they're a minority or if they can partner with a minority firm.
Because I'm reading the last sentence. It says there are no known area minority or woman-owned companies
And
that provide these services.
excuse me, Mr. Chair, but we see that on everything they send us. It's like a stamp. So we're gonna help get rid of that. We're gonna help make it better.
Well, we're going to hold it in committee for a month.
We'll
That's
come,
fine.
it may take more than a month if we've got to rebid it, right?
Okay,
Mr.
we'll
Rao?
just hold it in committee and wait till
Right.
staff gets back to us. Mr. McIntosh's next.
And that was my question about on the Exhibit A, why it says NA under the MWBE. What's the NA is telling us what they're not applicable, or nobody that applied had.
Not available?
So the question wasn't asked or it wasn't responded to, I guess.
Mr. Bates, come on up and answer.
On the Exhibit A, under the column MWBE, it just says NA under all the applicants. Does that mean the question wasn't asked, or the question was asked and wasn't answered?
The question was asked, and they filled out the document that says they're not a minority or women-owned business.
So it was asked and it was answered in the negative.
That is correct.
Okay, so we'll hold it. Mr. Larson, you had a comment?
Can I, and I know we have committees that look at this, but I had one minority who said the forms were just too difficult to fill out, that it was a complicated process to actually engage, and I have not seen the forms. So I just ask maybe our staff to evaluate the actual process of designating firms and whether or not our form is encumbered or whether we're asking materials that are difficult to achieve to get the certification that would allow them to be designated as a minority contractor.
We use the state certification form, but we'll bring the information. So the state does the certification, but we do a lot of work to try to help firms walk them through that process.
Well, that's the question. If it's hard to get through the door because it's too complicated, I don't know what the form. I don't know, but
It'd be nice to let the committee see the form. It'd be nice.
Thank
Ms.
you.
Burke?
Yes, I was going to say at the meeting there in Charlotte, I met the national president of the Black elected officials, and there were some suggestions that he was giving concerning minority involvement. I did direct Mr. Raleigh to look into that and give us some kind of report so we can better understand how minorities can move forward. Now, what Mr. Larson is bringing to the attention, some of us sitting here talking back and forth to each other, black like me, it's a possibility that it is complicated. So it does need to be explained because those are the kinds of things that minorities have come to us and said that first they don't have the help to help them to get through some of these things. And then we've made all these sacrifices. I'm getting ready to be touched a little bit here today. 40 years ago, I have served on this council. And 40 years ago, Alan Jones can sit there and understand clearly because he used to be work for me. He was assigned to do my duties and responsibilities. And he knows about economic development. He knows the struggles that minorities went through with. He knows the things that's been put before. And then we hire these minority people to work in government, and some of them are making it harder for minorities to even try to get a job or have an opportunity. Now, Mr. City Manager, I'm going to say about the minorities that you have working here on my shoulders. That's right. Because I'm the one, they wouldn't have been into these jobs if I had not pushed the way I pushed and had the support of 2 white Republicans, Bob Northerton and Jack Kavanaugh, to work with Virginia Newell and Larry Little and ourselves to try to move this city forward. They are the 2 men that would give us the votes that we needed to move this city where it needed to be moved. And here it is today. And all the minorities that we have hired, some of them seem to forget that they are black like me. And some seem to forget that they are women like me. And they make it difficult for some of the people who do come down here. Because when I get my reports, it does not come sometimes from some of the whites not being as sensitive. It says some of your blacks are not sensitive. So these 40 years I have served, and I've got Mr. Rao, he's going to give you a report. I have served 40 years coming twice a month to the meetings and to the committee meetings that I've come, and I have not missed a council meeting or a committee meeting. My commitment and my commitment and how I embrace people with how they feel and how they want to be treated. You touch me wrong when you're black like me and don't act like you're black like me and understanding the struggles that my people have experienced. It's no joke down here, Mr. City Manager. You understand me? And you need to have a meeting, a little prayer meeting with your blacks down here, too, to let them know that you're not playing. And you expect for them to do the kind of job they need to do. Now, we know some of your whites are not going to do what they're supposed to do unless you just stand over them. So the message has not been sent as clear as it ought to be sent. And I expect you to change things and make it right.
So we're going to hold this in committee until the staff's ready to bring it back, because it may take longer than a month. And I think some of the information that would be helpful would be to actually see what the form looks like.
Thank you.
Number 2, because we do use the state listing, see how many, I guess these are advertising services or firms, how many minority women are on the list and how many in Forsyth County. That would be interesting. And I will say, this is not an industry I know anything about, so it would be interesting for all of us to see this. Okay? So we'll just hold that. Appreciate it, gentlemen. Thank you. The last one I have under consent is C13. The Secretary would read that one, please.
Item C13, resolution awarding purchase orders for NIST Management Express software.
Chairman Clark, Mayor Joy.
This was Mr. McIntosh. Do you have a
I don't
question?
have a problem with, I'm not qualified to comment on the service that you guys are requesting us to pay for here, but my problem or my issue is the last sentence. Due to the proprietary software, this product is only available for purchase through DataWorks Plus. And again, I hate being in a position where it's a sole source. Going forward, I'd love to see us at least have another option than going to a firm or using a platform that is only available through one source.
May I add that we actually purchased our Express solution in 2013. This is actually an upgrade to their enterprise platform.
Right.
Simply get unlimited storage and more licenses. So we've already are using this product today. We're just upgrading it.
Okay, but I get concerned about getting locked into a platform you can't ever get out of, and you get held hostage from a software or hardware vendor.
Understood.
Yeah. And I know you're aware. We've had this conversation many times. So
yes, sir.
Bringing it up to remind you. Thanks.
Okay. Can I get a motion on this, please, then?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, if everybody will get ready to vote. Everybody, please vote on C13. That is approved. That finishes the consent. We will now go, there are 3 items left on the general agenda, and we'll start with G1. If the Secretary would please read that one.
Item G1, ordinance amending the project budget ordinance for the City of Winston-Salem for the fiscal year 2017-2018 to select 2014 bond project.
Ralph, why don't you give us a brief introduction of what's going on here?
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman Clark, Mayor Joines, Mayor Pro Tem Burke, and members of the City Council.
Good afternoon.
Back in August, City staff provided some information to the Finance Committee detailing the use of the initial premium that the city realized when we issued the first round of 2014 general obligation bonds last year, and then potential options for using an additional premium that we've now realized from the second issuance of bonds. At the time, staff did provide those options. One of those options was just to simply hold on to the money, to provide additional project contingency for our existing bond projects. We knew that we had a number of large projects still to be bid out for construction. At that time, the Finance Committee did recommend just simply holding on to those proceeds for that possibility for those existing projects. Since that time, city staff has received updated cost estimates from architects and engineers. We've also received bids on 3 projects that we will be bringing to you in January. So based on that information, we have prepared this council action to appropriate all those additional bond premium proceeds for these particular projects. Attachment A in the council action provides some information about the projects, the current scope, the current status, the change in cost, possible value engineering adjustments that we might consider, more or less elements of the projects that could be bid as add alternates rather than as part of the base project budget, and then the timeline for the project. The projects that we are presenting to you tonight for amendment are the Public Safety Center renovations project, the Meadowlark Drive widening project, Happy Hill Park improvements, Miller Park improvements, Haynes Park improvements, Old Salem infrastructure, the North Ward Park, Parkland Pool improvements, 2nd Street Park, and then a West Ward Pocket Park. Attachment B provides the proposed amendments to each of those projects. So the action before you is to appropriate almost $6 million in additional bond premium proceeds that the city realized with the second issuance of bonds earlier this year. Also an additional $247,000 in capital project reserves that are available to us. And then finally, we did realize significant savings in the Beatty second floor renovation project, and so we are moving about $828,000 of those funds into the Public Safety Center renovation project. So altogether, it's a net budget amendment of a little over $6.2 million. City Engineer Robert Presswood and our Director of Transportation, Tanika McCullough, are here if you have any specific questions about the projects.
One question I have, you have in here some value engineering or whatever that we could do. Do these numbers reflect that already being done? I'm hearing it. Mr. Presswood?
Good evening. No, they do not. Those potential value engineering are options of if the bids come in higher than the current estimates. We continue to see construction prices increasing in large amounts.
Yes, I understand. So that gives you a little more dry powder if you need it at the very end. And these projects will pretty much all be bid out in the next 12 months or so?
Yes. Less than that, probably.
Less than, okay. Any questions or comments?
So, thank you so much. And so you telling us the possible value engineering where it says add alternate and that sort of thing means that these aren't included in this figure and we'll bid these out later? Is that what you're saying, or are they included in the figure for the GO bond?
They are currently included in the figure. Okay. Those are just meant to be ideas, just in case the estimates come in high. These are the items we're going to look at possibly eliminating.
No. We might have, Mr. City Manager, no disrespect, we might need to come back and talk to some of us about this, committees or the council, as to, don't get me wrong, I don't know you know, I know Metal Arc and whatever that other part is that's getting a chunk of the money. I got that. But, you know, I'm speaking for the citizens of the North Ward right now. I know all of this is about the city, but I need my dog park. Y'all can laugh at that if you want to. I need the dog park.
Which one is that?
The North Ward Park. The park that we're building to be for service dogs, and it's going to be the first park in the city for special needs, people that are challenged, children, adults, veterans, disabled. They'll be able to go to this park, take their service dogs, walk their dogs, and any other thing. I need that dog park. Now, if I got to go on, as they say, television and bring all my dog, pet-loving people down here, we need that park for those folks up there, especially my veterans and children.
But you understand?
I just need to understand.
It's currently in there, and that's simply in that column if the bids come in even higher than we think they're going to come.
All I'm saying is we're going to have to find the money.
Yeah, we hear you.
All
Okay,
right.
Ms. Burke.
Yes, I said to the city manager a few weeks ago, when a taxpayer comes to him and says to him, Mr. City Manager, you manage 240-some thousand people. The 8 elected officials say to you to make sure you manage this city in a fair, honest, responsible, trustworthy way. Now, when these citizens look at what we are saying happening in this city, all 8 wards, can you truly say that when you look at these wards, that how we have spent this money, and you as the city manager, you're supposed to direct this the right way? I remember, this doesn't affect what I'm saying. I want you to have a Merry Christmas. Don't you let this get next to you. You're a good city manager. Don't you let this get next to you. Hear what I'm getting ready to say here.
It's Christmas.
Yeah.
He has a Christmas tie on.
That's right.
I don't want you to get excited about what I'm getting ready to say. But the city manager we had one time, Mr. Overpower,
I remember,
where he made his big mistake. Mm-hmm. He allowed some of his staff people to make some recommendations, and they did not make it fair, and that's why he got his hat and had to go too, one of the reasons. And so when a taxpayer looks at you, can you say all this money, because this money belongs to all these taxpayers, been putting money into this, have we really, truly given this money out in a fair, equal way that all citizens in each ward can feel comfortable?
Mayor Pro Tem Burke, yes, I believe that. I've been personally involved in this proposal, meeting with staff on it and actually making a lot of changes. The first goal was to make sure that we could try to complete the bond projects that were promised to the voters. It's this attempt to do that. And if you go back and look at those bond projects and how they were spread out throughout this community, I believe it was very fair to the community as a whole.
Okay. And understand, these are just changes. We got 100 and how much? 39 million?
39 million.
Yeah, and these are just, and I'm not surprised at the end because we've come out of recession that things are costing more now. That doesn't surprise me. I know some folks in the construction business, and they tell me, all of them tell me they're very, very busy.
They don't love us like they did when the economy was.
That's right. But anyway, one thing I have asked earlier when Mr. Orr was here is that when we get together on either the 22nd or the 29th, we will have a listing of what we've done with the current funds. So it'll answer your question, have it updated. Thank you. Some other hands up. Mr. Larson.
Yeah, I'm very excited about this because it really means we're going to push some of these projects through to completion. But I do have one little technical question that I don't quite understand, some math. Yeah. And that's if in the first bond issuance we had a balance of 1.34, is that correct? Is in the document? And in the second bond issuance we had a surplus or a savings of 5.97, which is 7.3 million. So if that is that the math that we have a cumulative benefit from the wonderful investment by our offices that we have, and we're not really dealing with 6 million, we're dealing with 7.3.
Yes, sir. Councilmember Larson, that when the initial premium, you all had appropriated a portion of it, and there was a remaining amount of 1.34 million. Since that time, that full contingency has been committed.
Reallocated. Okay,
yes,
so that is not available.
Yeah, it's not available.
So what is available actually is just about 6 million, and then because based on savings at Beatty and other places, we're cobbling together a 6.2 closure on the campaign project.
Yes, sir.
Great. Thank you.
I do remember we had some significant overruns at the convention center. And then we decided to redo the bridge, the pedestrian bridge. Two examples.
Good.
Any other questions, comments? Do we have a motion? Yes. Ms. Adams has made a motion. If someone would second, if they would like.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on G1. Everybody, please vote on it. Mr. Rao, it may be helpful when we meet Monday night if you could refresh everybody on, because this isn't the first surplus we've had, and we've had other, and I remember at the convention center, it seemed like maybe we found asbestos in one of the walls or something.
Yep.
I mean, it's,
And mold.
or maybe it was mold, but
Yep.
that's just the way life is sometimes, I realize that. Have an update on that one. Okay, thank you all. That is approved. We will now go to G2 we've done, so we'll now go to G3.
Item G3, supplemental information for Salem Lake Marina building fee.
Good evening again.
Ms. Tony, could you give us an update on this or a two-minute explanation?
Okay. During the November 20th City Council meeting, additional information was requested regarding the revenues received for the use of the Salem Lake Marina. The Budget and Evaluation Office developed a chart that you have that shows a breakdown of revenues as a percentage of expenditures for the Recreation and Parks Department as a whole. That's the top line. And then the second portion shows the breakdown of Salem Lake expenditures and revenues. So if you look across the top portion of the chart, I'm sorry that it's tiny, you'll see a trend percentage-wise in terms of actual revenue as a percentage of actual expenditures. On average, it's about 10% for cost recovery, just based on the revenues. And then when we specifically look at Salem Lake, you'll see a dash for the marina rentals up until the current year. So it is projected that the marina will bring in approximately $9,000 for the remaining 6 months of this fiscal year and $18,000 for next fiscal year. Cost recovery is approximately 25% of the to operate Salem Lake on the revenues.
Okay, so if I'm reading this right, the total amount of revenue we receive at all the parks for renting shelters and softball fields, whatever,
Is on average 10%.
is on average about 10% or about $1 million, and our total expenditures are 11. I wish Mr. Taylor was here because he was raised the issue, could we allocate the money that Salem Lake earns? And if I'm reading this right, we're projecting for next year that will be $130,000 roughly. I'm adding the $18,000 plus the $115,000.
We
18, 19, yes.
Right. We broke out the marina rentals is $18,000, so
Yeah.
that's correct.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's an interesting issue, but my thinking is if we're going to allow each place that gets money to keep it, then we got to do it for everybody, and that means while he may get more money from his marine rental, the part of the revenue he's getting from the other places he's going to have to give up. And in this case, it only covers 30%. So he's actually getting 3 times revenue what the park's earning. And by the way, all the parks lose money. I mean, I don't think a Greenway makes any money, does it? Or Hathaway Park doesn't make any money. I mean, a lot of places are passive type parks where just people walk and kids play on the playground equipment or things of that sort. Anyway, Ms. Burke.
Yeah, I was going to say that I wish Mr. Taylor was here, Councilmember, because when we start talking about money that we make go back to what we have, that may lead to something that's going to put you in a dead-end corner somewhere.
It's Christmas time.
Oh, it's Christmas, but now.
But yeah, it would be difficult to do.
Yes.
You know, we do have certain, we call them enterprise funds here, certain parts of the city that we operate at a break even, the water sewer being the best example, where what you pay for your water and sewer equals what it costs, both capital and chemicals to clean the water and all that. But that's not what we do with Parks and Rec. We provide them as a service, and we charge a very minimal fee to use the facilities. So if it's okay for everybody, this has been presented as information. We'll just hold it at that way, if that's okay with everybody. Okay. The last one I've got on here is G4. The secretary, please read that one.
Item G4, resolution releasing the deed restrictions on a 1.5-acre portion of the 20-acre parcel of land sold to Greater Tabernacle Worship Center on March 25th, 2013.
Morley, could you give us a rundown of this? Because I read this and it was complicated.
I'll try to simplify it as much as I can.
Thank you.
Chairman Clark. In 2013, the city sold 20 acres of land on Old Walkertown Road to Greater Tabernacle Worship Center for $200,000 or $10,000 an acre. Recently, Greater Tabernacle negotiated a contract with Spring Hill Land Trust, a developer, to sell for $300,000 a 1.5-acre portion of the 20-acre portion that they purchased from the city in 2013. The site would be used by Spring Hill for the construction of a Dollar General store. When the city sold the 20-acre parcel, Greater Tabernacle, it was based on a sale to a nonprofit entity carrying out a public service, and thus the sale did not go through the upset bid process at that time. Deed restrictions, because it was sold to a nonprofit, deed restrictions were placed in the deed which restricted the use of the land to certain public purposes in the future. Now, in order for Greater Tabernacle to resell a portion of the land, that 1.5 acres, for a profit, it would be necessary for the city to release the restrictive covenants on the 1.5-acre portion in order to accommodate that sale. The original restrictive covenants will endure on the remaining 18.5 acres of the church property. And since their original sale was to a nonprofit carrying out a public purpose, and the sale did not go through the upset bid process, Greater Tabernacle has offered to pay the city the difference in the current fair market value of the property, which has been appraised at we're talking about the 1.5 acres now, which has been appraised by an MAI appraiser at $295,000. In the prorated purchase price at the time of the purchase, which was $15,000. That's 1.5 acres at $10,000 an acre. So the difference being $280,000. Greater Tabernacle is basically coming tonight to you with 3 requests. The first one would be to release the restrictive covenants on that 1.5 acre parcel so they can sell it to Spring Hill. The second one is that in recognition of the reimbursement to the city of the increase of the fair market value, Greater Tabernacle is requesting that a grant from the city in the amount of $280,000 to carry out the original public purpose programming that's summarized in your Exhibit A. So that's the second request they have, is the grant for $280,000 from the city. And the third part is that there's a condition in their contract, the purchase contract with Spring Hill, that the city, on its adjoining property, which is over a 13-acre parcel that adjoins that part that they're going to sell, that the city provide an access easement across that property to get to the proposed sale parts that the Dollar General will occupy. And Spring Hill has offered to purchase that access easement for $15,000. So there are 3 parts really that the church is requesting of council tonight. There are representatives from the church here that would be available to answer any questions that you might have, and I can certainly go into more detail on any of these if you'd like.
So those are to release the 1.5 acres, the grant for the $280,000?
Yes, they are going to they are proposing to reimburse the city the difference in the fair market value now and what they paid for $280,000, and then they're requesting a grant for $280,000 to carry out their original purposes, nonprofit purposes, that they had requested originally.
And the last one is the easement for 15,000 across the 13 acres to get to the.
That's on the city property, that the city would get that $15,000 from the developer.
Okay. Is anyone here from the organization that would like to say something?
Yes.
Please come forward. Whoever would like to.
And also the pastors here, Apostle Cloud. Would you-
Please, everybody can come up if you'd like. Okay. Whoever would like to speak can go first. Hang on a minute. And if each speaker will please give your name and address before you speak, so we'll have that for our record.
Christian Daney, 111 Scholastic Court, Winston-Salem, North Carolina, 27105.
Thank you.
The name, which is Vanessa McLeod, and the address is 2443 Winterwoods Lane. That's in Winston-Salem.
Thank you.
I'm Brenda McLeod. I live at 306 Clayton, Clayton Street, Winston-Salem,
Thank you.
NC 27105.
Thank you all. And whoever would like to speak first, please go ahead.
Okay, I just want to speak first. First of all, we have had this property for a while, and we had a meeting just recently, and for the citizens, and they are asking that we build something that would help the senior citizens, that would help the neighborhood around there. And so if we can get the money and you guys approve it and give us a grant, the first phase would be a gym, and the senior citizens can come in, the neighborhood can use it. Senior citizens, we will have rooms in there that they can use it, and they will be able to come. And also our church would be, that would be the first phase of our church, and we will also use it. We have planned also to use a portion of it to make a walking trail. My husband was the pastor of the church for about 18 years, and now I have been pastoring for 18. And so we want to name the walking trail, the A.W. McLeod walking trail. And where we are now, we are on Atus, and we do a lot for our community. And we are planning on keeping the site there because it's already paid for. The old hut, somebody may remember that. We renovated the old hut. They called the old hut the baddest club in town. So what we did, we turned it into the best place to be in town. So now we're using that for a children's site. We have our youth pastor with us also, who's doing a marvelous job with them. And so that part would be for after school, and the part of his senior citizen and the ones that live up there, we will have after school programs. So he's a teacher for Lexington, and she's Dr. McLeod for the Winston-Salem school system. So we would like for you guys, unless you have questions for me, for them to tell you the rest of our plan.
Okay, that's fine.
Is that okay?
Continue, please. Dr. McLeod?
Yes. So most of it have already been spoken on as far as our plans for what we'd like to do at the site that we are requesting, but mostly to, once again, help the community to be a part. Where we are currently looking to renovate even more the site that we do have on property, which is the hut, to utilize that space for individuals in the community, that they can use that for, as we said, after-school programs, for a youth center as well, and just for people to have a meeting space in place in which we hope to utilize that space for that also. Right, for the community, yeah, well,
Okay.
it will be for everyone in that community.
All right. Anything else, sir, you would like to offer?
I just second that, but at the same time, as well as the old HUD, inside of there, we will also have computer classes and different things of that sort to assist with our communities in the Dreamland area where we currently are. And for the site that we're requesting, we will do the gymnasium first, and that will be the community, for the community at large.
But your current location is not on this site, it's...
No, it's at 1410 Attuck Street.
Okay, all right. Which ward is this in?
It's in the northeast.
Northeast?
They're in the east ward now. But where they're proposing is in the northeast on the corner of Old Walkertown Road and Motor Road.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
And do we know, would this land need, the 1.5 acres need to be rezoned? It would be. Okay. All right, thank y'all. I'll see if does the council, anyone have any questions, comments? Oh, Ms. Adams, go ahead.
Yeah. Not for you all, for staff. Mr. Page, tell the listening audience what is meant by giving someone a grant from the city.
So in this case, what they're requesting is funding from the city that would be used for the public purpose, i.e. building the community center. So the grant is used to benefit the community that they're requesting.
And where would this money come from within the budget?
It would come from the same money. So they would give us $280,000, and we would turn around and give them $280,000. So it's that it would be from the land proceeds.
Okay. Ms. Adams, any more questions?
One more question.
Go ahead.
And then I'll let the Mayor Pro Tem speak. Presently, this project has been ongoing for about 10 years, 12 years, 20 years, 10 years, almost 7, or what?
Yeah.
Okay. Most recently, Greater Tabernacle acquired it probably in 2013. We've had the land probably 30 years or more. I tried to market it for various purposes over the years, for everything from a shopping center to a cemetery to fire training facility. So we've looked at multiple purposes for industrial use over the years, but they're the first ones to actually the entire site was about 37 acres, if I recall. Probably 4 of it was used for the extension of Motor Road. They purchased 20, and we still own 13.
So far, last question, Mr. Chair.
You go right
so
ahead.
far, how much have we, the city, have we received any payments or profits or anything from this land since 2007, 10, whatever?
So
I remember when I came on the council, this came up within the first year or something.
They actually purchased the land from us, so they did pay us, I think, $200,000 when they purchased the 20 acres back in 2013. So we have received that $20,000.
200,000.
200,000, excuse me.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Ms. Burke's next.
Yeah, I was going to ask, the first question that the council person asked was about have we done this, correct me if I'm wrong, have we done this before? What did you ask?
No, I asked him what kind of grant,
What kind of?
where is that, which parts of the budget is it coming from, to explain to people in the audience?
Yes. Also, when we look at the church, they have been struggling, but the area where they are, they have been a benefit. Now, as Mr. Page indicated, the corner has been a corner that we've been trying to get something on for many years. Yeah. It starts back with the mayor. You've met with folks back yonder years ago to try the economic development, and we never could get anyone, and the church stepped forward, and I feel that the plan that they're talking about can be a very good plan myself. It's just so happened when they first bought this land, the stipulation in it was saying what it just said. And so what they're trying to do now is to get out from under that, help to be able to put what they would like to have on that piece of property. It is a forsaken area. In fact, when we were up at the meeting a few weeks ago up in Auburn, one of the individuals said that we had done a poor job in trying to get businesses up there, felt that that was an area that had been forsaken. And so I've had the conversation with the city manager about it. I said, it is some proof to that. We now have some vacant land up there. If we could get something up there, and I did tell them in that meeting, they need to be talking to the mayor, because the mayor has been bringing businesses into this city, and you have had a strong support of minorities, and that it ought to be something that you ought to be working hard to add up there, not only on the acres that the church is talking about, but we have some other acreage, 13. And we've not been able to get anything done. And I would hope that this council and these members on this board will be sensitive to what Pastor McLeod is asking of us. It may be something new, first go round, but we've tried a whole lot of new things. We just finished talking about getting investments, getting minorities, and trying to be fair across the whole city.
Okay. I think Mr. McIntosh, Ms. Burke, is that all for now?
Yeah, right now.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. McIntosh.
When I first read the item, my first thought was, oh my God, what a lousy real estate deal the city did back in 2007. But really, the reality on the ground was different then than it is now. Motor Road didn't exist.
Correct.
And that area has changed since then, and that opened up an opportunity that didn't exist in 2007. So I think the value of the land is significantly different. I do have a question of y'all. Do you have a budget? Do you have cost estimates for what you want to build?
We're in the process of building that now, so we'll have that next week, actually.
Okay. Do we have any mechanism to tie this $280,000 grant to actually tie it to construction? Or do we feel like that's necessary? I don't know the church at all, but should we be good stewards of that money and say it's only to be used for construction purposes? And I'll leave that to staff to kind of come back to us.
All right. And what we need to keep in mind, they're talking about a gym, not a church.
Right.
Yeah.
That will be a resource for public.
Yeah, public purpose.
Okay, Ms. Carmen.
I was going to say the answer to that question is yes. And I met with the pastor and other members last Wednesday to help them structure this request so it meets the statute, because they have to provide fair market value to get that release of the 1.5 acres from the restrictions in the deed. As you all may recall, the property was sold to them in 2013 as a discount because they were carrying out a public purpose.
Correct.
So, yes, those restrictions can be placed on them.
And just my other comment was, if this group were to use this land, all of it as a church, we wouldn't see any money out of it anyway. There would be no payment to us. So then selling it really doesn't change our net position as far as dollars and cents.
Okay.
And now I'm
Go
going to tell you what, one of the people up there in the Auburn area, what's his name, the one who has the hot dog place I told you about?
Kermit?
William.
And he was saying it seemed to him, and they were not there, the pastor, they were not even at this meeting. That was another group of people from that area. With all that land up there, it looked like we would be doing more to try to get it more busier with some type of development. And if this is going to happen this evening, or whatever will happen, this will be the first something up there to motivate. And I will tell you what happens right today. The people who live up on Motor Road, Old Rural Hall, they walk from that down to the new Walkertown Road at that Family Dollar, and you see them carrying their little yellow bags all that distance. They have no store up there. They don't even have one up in the Ogburn Station. What they have in Ogburn Station is the market that Ms. McCoy and those put up there, and the other restaurants that are trying to bring some life to that area. So I would think that, I would hope and pray that if this were to happen, that would give somebody maybe saying, maybe I can develop something here.
Okay. Mr. Larson?
There's a lot of things loaded on this camel, and I am a little concerned about looking over the history of it. You know, it goes back to 2007, 10 years ago.
The original proposal was to sell 33 acres, and that was to be $594,000. That money couldn't apparently been raised, and in 2010, an extension was given of 3 years to allow additional opportunity and the name has changed. The Tabernacle Church formed a CDC to address the issue, and what eventually appears to have happened was that the parcel was then reduced down to 20 acres from the original 33, and the amount per acre was reduced from 15,000 per acre to 10,000 per acre to come up basically then with the $200,000. So finally in 2013, that amount was paid, and they took possession and title of the property. As far as I can tell, no construction has occurred on that. We gave them apparently a 3-year extension in August of last year to allow the project to continue, and now they've got a $300,000 offer from General Store, basically to buy 1.5 of those 20 acres. So they've sort of got a development opportunity to pull in $300,000 for that 1 point, which is a pretty good deal, and I admire that, and I'm sure Motor Road has something to do with that. So what they're offering us, though, is $295. I don't know where the other $5,000 shows up, but they have a firm offer for $300,000. They're offering us $295, and then they're discounting that because they paid $10,000 per acre. They're going to give us they're going to discount it by $15,000, which takes us down to the $285, which is what's being offered. And so, what we've got is a development project to put, a Dollar General store on a piece of property that was sold to them under deed covenant for very specific purposes, non-competitive bid with 8 or 9 conditions that were being provided as their responsibility to how to develop the property. And I don't know how many of these they have actually fulfilled. I suspect they've fulfilled a number of them, but not on this site, because I don't think, tell me if I'm wrong, that any development has actually occurred in the last 10 years on this 20-acre parcel. Yes. You have taken possession of it. You own the land, and that's all great. But the agreement for the 8 or so conditions which allowed us to sell you that property uncontested, as it were, upset bids, is still pending to do that. And we've given an additional, as of last year, we gave an additional 3 years to allow that to begin to be implemented. In the meanwhile, we've come forward now with a proposal that's a $300,000 proposal to buy 1.5 acres, but it's incumbent on the city also agreeing to provide a right-of-way. We have no site plans. We have no real knowing about rezoning, and so that's in play. I'm not entirely comfortable with this, the way it's standing right now. If the Tabernacle were interested in divesting themselves, for example, I'm not so sure that we can't see in another year or two the parcel beside the General Dollar coming back up for sale again, and we're going through another phase of development, which the money is then being transferred back to the Tabernacle. This is really sort of a development project that the Tabernacle has put together on property that was designated for their use and is now turned into an economic development package. I'm not objecting to General Dollar going in there. I'm not objecting to small business development. I am a little concerned about the way this is being maneuvered. I think the amount of money that is being developed from the sale of this property, to automatically flip it back to the Tabernacle outside of normal granting programming is certainly different, and would require some thought and precedent on our part about doing that. It might be cleaner for them simply to sell this land back to the city for the $15,000, and the city sell it to General Dollar for $300,000, and then we take the money, and if we choose to give a grant to the Tabernacle, that we give it as a grant to the Tabernacle separately and unencumbered by this transfer of property. But in the meantime, I think I'd like to see, what the site plan is and how the proposed easement, which we're encumbering ourselves with this particular document, is going to work within the overall development plan. And I don't know the planning department or anybody else has looked at this as far as to what it actually means for traffic and everything else. It's kind of a tight intersection. If they're proposing a driveway at that intersection off of that easement, I wonder if that's actually going to work. So, this is where I'm looking at it. I'm not opposed to the idea that this land be developed as a commercial activity to support the neighborhood. I am a little concerned about the way it was transferred initially and now being transferred and washed back through as an offline grant, basically, to this organization.
Okay, Ms. Burke, you had a comment?
Attorney addressed some of those things.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll be happy to. Basically, the church really has no choice but to come back to the city and ask the city to release the property, the 1.5 acres, from the restrictions that are in the deed. Right. The deed specifically provides that if they're not going to abide by the restrictions, they have to provide the city, in essence, fair market value for the property. So initially, at $10,000 per acre, we're talking about 1.5 acres, they paid $15,000 for the 1.5 acres. So now the fair market value is basically $295, and essentially the difference is the $280 that they're basically offering the city. So they have no choice but to offer that to the city. It is not uncommon for the city to give a grant to a nonprofit entity carrying out a public purpose. The statute allows for contracts of that nature. And so that's what they're essentially asking, is that the city take the money that it is basically giving the city to release the property from the restrictions, the $280,000, and give it back to them in the form of a grant to help them carry out the public purpose restrictions that are set forth in the deed. And the deed specifically provides for the grantee shall construct upon the property a grantor-approved facility capable of accommodating programs for the benefit of the public. Then it goes on to talk about those programs. So what they're trying to do is basically carry out the purposes set forth in the deed. They basically need the financial resources, thank you, to carry out that purpose.
So, go ahead. Can I interrupt 1 minute? We're 17 minutes over and there's an angry crowd outside. How time sensitive is this if we were to continue it?
Well,
Can someone answer?
We need to move forward with that, if at all possible.
Okay, all right.
Because we need to.
You've got a client that you've got to
be responsible. And then
okay.
We have already made what was that? Those steps. The site plan.
Okay, all right.
Where we're going to build it.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
There is a purchase contract that has a deadline in it as well.
Okay.
And as far as the easement, there is a map that's attached to the item that shows the location of the easement.
Yeah,
I see that, but that's not an engineer drawing, and I don't know that it's been through transportation, and whether it's even viable to put an exit on that road at that location.
Let me, if I may.
Mayor,
yes,
now you understand this piece of property. Mm-hmm. Now, you know that they have been honest, upfront people. We've done a lot of things, and this attorney would never have let us got this far in Mr. Berlin with what we're doing. Now, there were some people to review this, Councilmember Larson, and there are certain things that this group will ask for once we give permission. That piece of land gonna be there. I don't care if we've cut the roads, because like I told the person, I said there's some deep land there, and it's gonna have to do a whole lot to get them to want to put property on there. Now, they have been patient. If they had it, I'm just gonna say this, you think they would have themselves in this situation. They want to do something that's gonna help us. And to start like with you, it's like we're going to have to start all back over. And what they should do, and the first church was not their church. The first church was Macedonia, and they could not do the job. So they came before us, and they moved aside. they follow through with the guidelines that the attorney has set for them to understand.
Let me make a few comments. I would be comfortable under the following scenario, and it's kind of get what Mr. Larson and Mr. McIntosh have both mentioned. If we do this, number one, we need to know what this, I'm going to call it a gymnasium, that's the term. Community, what it's going to cost. Because I'm hearing the topography might be a challenge and some things of that sort. And I don't need an artist's rendering, I just need to know what it's going to, best guess. And we do have some staff here on site that can take a look at the numbers when we get them and kind of, I'm assuming we can, Mr. Turner, kind of take a look and see if they look realistic based on what we have. Number two, I would also think you need to look at the operating cost of this. What's it going to cost to operate it? Electricity, whatever it may be. And thirdly, I would want the money held in escrow until it was ready to start construction, and that we would release it as you release money to construction companies. You do that all the time. Because I do have some concern, and I don't know what this is going to cost. I've seen the land, but I haven't walked it and all that. If it comes in as $2 million or something, then that's a whole different animal than what we're talking about now. So I have no trouble sending it forward, but I want some conditions that it's going to be held in escrow until it's a reasonable project. And certainly you don't want to get into it if you find out again. If you find out it's going to cost I just know it costs a lot of money to move dirt, and why it does, I have no idea, but that is a true statement. It costs a fortune to move dirt.
Yes.
So anyway, with those conditions, I don't have any...
May I make a motion?
Yes, ma'am, you may.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we move forward with this with the comments that you have made.
Okay.
Did you hear what he said, Attorney?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to move this forward to the full committee with the additional stipulations that the organization provide us with estimates for both operating and construction, and that any money from this would be held in escrow until for a firm contract and it's released as the building's built, etc. We have a motion and a second. Oh, excuse me, Dan.
That's all right. I just had a question because I couldn't find this. Do we know what Dollar General is paying for the land?
Yes.
300.
Basically, the net amount we're getting, we're granting back.
So that's why I wanted to check on, because I didn't see that in writing anywhere in the explanatory material.
It is.
Okay.
In the narrative.
One more comment.
Yes, ma'am.
Chair,
And this,
we voted some of this, but just for the listening audience and others, again, and I know a lot of people think that some of us here, we can get very emotional and passionate about our communities, but that's what we got elected to be. And if sometimes people get uncomfortable with the Mayor Pro Tem, myself, Mr. Taylor, Mr. Montgomery, then so be it. But because of the world we live in, and because of the way our community has become, and people like me and Mr. Taylor, who were born and raised here, it's up to me to know that I am going to make a difference any way I can. So I'm just going to do what's just and right. And it's not going to always, like I keep telling you, it's not going to fit in a box. Some of these things, in order for them to move forward in this community with the people, we're going to have to think outside the box. And some of us are going to have to stand on the front line to make it happen. So I believe in what you're doing and what you're trying to do. Again, like the Mayor Pro Tem, we pass that corner every day, all day, and I've always wanted to see something over there. And when Motor Road came through, I was like, yes, we're getting ready to get something on this major intersection. It's been years, and we still don't have anything at a road that thousands of cars go down every day. Every day. So, well, I'm wishing you all well.
Thank you.
Okay?
okay, that is approved, and that is the last item on the agenda. And I know some of y'all are here for the next committee that actually started 20 minutes ago.
No, we didn't.
But let's assume the public safety will start at 6:30. Thank y'all all. We are adjourned.